Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order. We'll start with the approval of our minutes for May 4th, 2021. Commissioners' comments, questions, motion to approve.
Motion.
Okay, first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Commissioners, with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and move forward with the City of Hagerstown, do commissioner comments afterwards. So, hearing no objections, Mayor and Council, would you come forward? Introduce yourself. Are you waiting on anybody else?
We are waiting on some members that are walking.
Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and do commissioner comments then. I just wanted to be respectful of your time. Thank you. Vice President Baker?
Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I'd like to thank the city's elected body and administration for being here today to meet with us. And I know there's been some buzz about the county won't meet with the city and all of that there. And I got to thinking about that. Nobody's met with anybody for well over a year. So I think that was never, at least my intent or the county's intent, not to meet with anybody, and I don't even know how that really got started, but that certainly was never a thought of mine. And so I just welcome the opportunity to have a good dialogue today, and again, thank you for being here.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Commissioner Kiefer?
Sure, I have a couple things. Today is the Washington County Gives Day. If anyone would like to make a donation to one of several nonprofit organizations in the community that does great things for Washington County, you can visit washingtoncountygives.org. As of right now, 473 people have donated a combined $91,111, and there are 13 hours, 52 minutes left to give today. I had a call over the weekend from a citizen in Smithsburg with a concern about a potentially rabid animal, and we had a little bit of a issue reaching out to the health department, 911 call center, the DNR, about which organization, which government entity handles cases of suspected rabies among wild animals. And the health department was able to get that information for us, and I know they issued a press release yesterday. It is the USDA Wildlife Services Operators Hotline. The phone number is 1-877-463-6497. Unfortunately, they do only operate Monday through Friday, so you would have to leave a message if it's over the weekend. But this is for a wild animal suspected of having rabies. If it's a domesticated animal, that could be the Humane Society. But for a wild animal, the USDA Wildlife Services Operators.
Good.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burgett?
Good morning, City. Last Tuesday afternoon, I visited with Mr. Kretzer of the Highways Department in South County, and we discussed some needs and issues he has. And on Wednesday, I then met with Zane Rao, the Director of Highway Department on Northern Avenue, and we spoke for about 2 hours addressing some issues, including the hiring process of the county. On Thursday, I met with the new Director of Human Resources to pass on some thoughts and concerns about Washington County's hiring practices, and planning to see that maybe we work towards a goal of filling entry-level positions within 3 weeks of a person's interview. Friday, Commissioner Kiefer and I visited the leadership of the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. We spent over 2.5 hours with them discussing their needs and especially the issue of volunteer retention. Matter of fact, later this morning, Dell Fishak and Dave Hayes will be here with us to talk about some of that. We also visited the Conococheague Wastewater Treatment Plant in Williamsport. This morning I attended the post-legislative forum held by the Chamber of Commerce down at HCC, and would like to thank our local representatives for their hard work in bringing some much-needed funds to our local area and for representing our conservative values in Western Maryland. And then finally today, as Mr. Kiefer, Commissioner Kiefer mentioned, is Washington County Gives, and you can go to washingtoncountygives.org to give back to a local organization of your choice.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Wagner?
Hey, good morning. Welcome, Mayor and City Council. Wanted to keep Tim Amons in our prayers and thoughts. He had an accident last week. He's in a hospital down in the city, I think a burn unit. He's a great asset to our community for our fire services, so just want to keep him in our thoughts and prayers. Want to thank Ole Griffith for Boonesboro needed a dive team for the reservoir. He's arranged to do that. And so Ole's always there to help all the municipalities out. And I'd like to get a consensus from the commissioners today, if possible, on we've mentioned this several times, but on to Kirk on our recovery process for the approximately $600,000 we're out from waiting on litigation for Fort Ritchie. I don't know if you've given this any more thought, but I'd like to move forward with it to try to recover some of the money lost on that negotiation and that litigation that drug it on from April of 2020 till just recently.
We've identified some options, and with the commissioner's concurrence, we can move forward. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that we'll be successful or that there's any funds available to actually recover those costs.
Thoughts, comments, commissioners, consensus for that action? Charlie? Wayne, Terry, consensus? Okay, is that five? Wayne?
I don't know what the options are.
I'd like to hear
the
options first.
I can discuss very generally. If you want a detailed discussion, I don't really want to get
What
into
did
it.
we do with
But-
the trying to collect the money up at the landfill? What kind of a arrangement did we have there? What's that called? A letter of
It was a promissory note?
promissory note.
I was gonna say, I'd recommend that if it's a consensus of the commissioners to instruct staff to go down that path, that staff can put together some options and bring them back to you
Okay.
for discussion in a closed session discussion.
Okay.
So we can decide how best to proceed from a legal perspective.
Yeah, that's
All
good.
right.
Maybe the waste to energy fiasco is something that we still need to resolve as well.
Yeah, but, right, yeah, that's something separate, but you want a consensus to move forward with a letter to recoup the loss of the funds at Fort Ritchie during litigation?
Well, presentation of options.
We can present some options. to
Okay, the
commissioners,
options, okay. All right, is that five on that?
If we include the waste to energy.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep that separate. No, we do that as a separate. So right now you want a consensus on legislation or letter to recover loss of revenue from the Fort Ritchie litigation. Okay, is that what we're doing first?
I'm okay with both.
And then, no, it's just a consensus.
I understand,
And then
but
the
I'm
other,
okay with
okay, we have five on that. Now, explain what you want with the waste to energy or what that is.
Well, I'd like to have an update.
Update,
and,
okay.
I'd like to know how much of that money we've recovered.
Okay. All right, so we got a consensus for the recovery funds for Fort Ritchie and an update on the landfill. Very good. Okay, Commissioner Wagner, what else?
That's it for me.
All right, first, I'll go next. Welcome, Mayor and Council and guests. I do want us to keep Mr. Ammons in your prayers. It was a terrible accident, hearing from friends and family. He is on the road to recovery, but it's going to be a long road in recovery. I too did attend a legislative session this morning and saw some of my colleagues there. Thank you everyone for being there. I think it was Friday, attended the opening of Amanda Kaplan's State Farm Agency out on Governor Lane. Sort of a bittersweet story. Amanda worked for the late Dan Hall, who had his agency there on Virginia Avenue, and Dan passed away with an illness, and Amanda came on to somewhat take over that agency, and it was a very emotional speech that she was proud to open her State Farm Agency in the memory of Dan Hall. And again, today is Washington County Gives Day. I believe there's over 80 organizations or causes on the Community Foundation's website. For all those here today or listening, I would strongly urge you to go contribute to the cause of your choice. With that being said, that concludes my comments. So Mayor and council, would you like to come forward and join us at the table? And Mayor Keller, would you introduce your guests? You're all welcome to come up and sit. Please do. Please join us. Folks, if you're ready, I'll begin with a opening statement. I'm going to repeat some of the things that Mr. Baker said. The commissioners have always tried to go out in the community at least once a year to visit all the 9 municipalities. I think history shows that we met 2 or 3 times with the city on a regular basis, and the same way we had multiple meetings with the school board. So I want to thank all of you for working together and making this meeting happen today. The only one thing I want to get off the elephant out of the room before we begin and allow Emily to speak, we just want to confirm that there'll be a consensus to at least pay that first payment. And that would be my only question to you at this moment. So Mayor Keller, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for having us today. As far as the payment, we did vote to table it some time ago, so we have to go into a special session to vote to issue the payment. So that is on the agenda for our meeting on next Tuesday, May 18th.
Okay, I'd like to have some type of assurity that we run at least get that first payments or consensus amongst you to agree to that, because we've kind of fulfilled our first part of this bargain by meeting today.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you meeting with us, which is why when we nailed down this meeting last week, that was one of the first things we went over, was adding this back to our agenda so we can vote on releasing that 911 payment. And hopefully have some action items that I'd like to secure today that we can all move forward and start getting some things done.
All right, I appreciate those comments. I'll open the floor now for you to begin. Please do.
Thank you. So first I just wanted to start out by saying thank you to Commissioner Burkett and Commissioner Baker for reaching out to me about a week and a half ago and recognizing the importance of the city and county having a good working relationship. We are the biggest municipality in Washington County. Obviously what is good for the county is good for the city, and what's good for the city is good for the county. So I appreciate you guys reaching out, and President Klein, I appreciate you helping to make this meeting happen.
You're welcome.
So I just want to discuss high level. We often throw around, the 911 center payment, tax differential, fair fire funding, all of these kind of buzzwords, and I think we don't articulate what it is that we are asking for. So if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just do a high level overview of what in ideal world we would like to see happen and come up with some action items moving forward. So the first one I'll discuss is the 911 service bill. Of course, you guys took over dispatch 12 years ago from the city, and we had 12 city employees that transitioned to county employees, which is where the $405,000 came from. Unfortunately, it did lack a formal agreement. Your 2021 budget shows you've allocated $5.8 million to 911 services, and of course, 21% of that is being paid for by the city of Hagerstown taxpayers when they pay their county tax bill, plus the additional $405,000. So we are just asking it to come up with a formula that's fair for everyone and come up with a formal agreement moving forward, so every year we're not voting to table something and coming back and having this conversation.
Emily, may I interrupt 1 second? Isn't there some type of draft of a contract that we presented or we have at one time?
There has been a draft MOU that memorializes the historic agreement.
What we'll do, we'll start revisiting that and get that, okay?
Thank you. And respectfully, what I would like to ask is that in the next 2 weeks, our city administrator sit down with our county administrator and whatever staff that you guys choose to have with you, and start coming up with that formula, what it looks like and how we move forward. So that is my number one request right now, is within the next 2 weeks we get that ball moving so we can put an end to this payment issue.
Very good.
I think the number 2 issue is a much broader issue, the tax differential. Of course, 21% of your tax base resides in the city. We do pay to the county the same tax rate as the other municipalities, such as Keedysville or Williamsport. and that's to pay for county services rendered. However, the city of Hagerstown functions a little different than a lot of your municipalities. We pay, for our own plowing, fire, police, permits, engineering, parks, IT, etc. We also share in your general fund covering of the water wastewater fund, although the city of Hagerstown residents will never use that service for the county. So we do feel that it's an unfair tax calculation. We look at Allegheny County, where they have a different tax differential for each one of their municipalities. So each year they have a chart as to what the municipalities provide, and they came up with a tax differential that's fair to each municipality. So for example, Cumberland is significantly larger than Frostburg, and they provide additional services. So their tax differential is different than Frostburg. I understand that this is a difficult ask and a difficult conversation because you are elected to represent all of the municipalities in Washington County. With that said, Hagerstown is part of that county, and we haven't had a discussion around this tax differential in several years. Most places in Maryland do report back once a year to their citizens as to what's being paid and where. So we are asking that we start having conversations at a more specific level regarding this tax differential. The third issue I think is another overarching issue is fire services from the city. Of course, we have a paid fire system here within the city of Hagerstown. The county is largely volunteer-based, and I know you just hired some additional firefighters. But in November of 2020, the 4 chiefs, Hagerstown Police Department, Hagerstown Fire Department, the county sheriff, and DES, sat down to take a look at services that we share, both police and fire. Police services panned out to be pretty fair and equitable, which is all we are asking for, is for the tax differential and for fire funding to be fair and equitable. However, the fire services definitely were not. The chiefs themselves determined that the county would owe the city anywhere between $402,000 and $417,000 for fire services rendered in a given year. I understand we do have mutual aid. The city of Hagerstown Fire Department is often in the county. We were just in Hancock 2 nights ago. With that said, the county fire system is often in the city helping us as well. We do need each other. But the city of Hagerstown taxpayers pay for that county service when they pay their county tax bill. The county residents, however, do not pay for the city of Hagerstown Fire Department, which is a $9 million fire department. The city of Hagerstown residents only pay for that. So we do feel that that needs to be taken into consideration, especially with the tax differential. Since 1966, the county, DES, all volunteer companies, and MIFRE classes have used our burn building over on Bowman Avenue. And just to point out, especially in areas like the Robinwood Drive corridor, which is assigned to Funkstown service area, our units had delivered first water on every significant structure fire in the previous 6 years. So we are the largest provider of fire. We have the best men and women on our fire department and in the county as well. But it needs to be fair and it needs to be equitable for the city of Hagerstown taxpayers. On another note regarding the fire service, although we are the largest provider of fire service, we don't have a seat at the table when it comes to discussions in the governance model. We don't have a seat at the table on the ESAC committee and other decisions that are being made that surrounding staffing and equipment. So I would like to request that the city of Hagerstown Fire Department have a seat at the table and a say in the staffing models and the things that are happening around the county, since we do supplement quite often in this county. So those are kind of, in my opinion, the 3 overarching issues that we're facing, and I know they're very in-depth, but what we are just asking for on behalf of our citizens is for it to be fair and equitable. That's it, for it to be fair. And I think right now, if you look at it numbers-wise, it's not. So a path forward that I would respectfully ask is that we agree to have quarterly meetings like this. We did start that back in 2017, then it kind of got railroaded a little bit. The change of county administrator, and then of course COVID. So I would like to go ahead, if possible, schedule a meeting for July 13th or July 20th. We will welcome you at our house, but that sets the tone for every 3 months we'll have a quarterly meeting. And then also resume the 2x2s with the county commissioners and our council members and whatever staff we see fit, so we can start diving into some of these issues, pulling apart the numbers, and coming up with a plan to move forward.
One suggestion, with the 2x2s, I like to see that we rotate them. You know, it wouldn't be the same 2 on 2, so we all can become colleagues and friends and know. Would that be okay, guys, ladies? okay?
Absolutely. And I think that the better we know each other personally, it only helps working relationships. I know that I can pick up the phone and call the four of you, and now I have Commissioner Burkett's number as well, and I know that we can talk and work things out. I think that's important for a working relationship. None of these issues are simple, and I recognize we're not just gonna, and it's gonna be fixed, but we've also been talking about these same issues since 2016, and we haven't really gotten very far with them. So I think it's time to start doing some work that's gonna be difficult and uncomfortable, and it's gonna make uncomfortable decisions that aren't gonna make everyone across the board happy. But at the end of the day, we were elected to represent the taxpayers of our community, us for the city of Hagerstown, you for the county, and we need to make sure that they're being taxed fairly and provided services on a fair level.
Emily, I don't disagree with some of it, but I'm sort of being painted as an anti-citizen of Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm looking at a list here, and I'm not gonna bore you all with all of it, but it equates to quite a bit, you know, what we've done for the city of Hagerstown. So that's directly to the citizens of the city of Hagerstown, from the theater, to the schools, to the Museum of Fine Arts, to the BMX, to the theater design costs, to the Jonathan Street improvement, Franklin Street, I mean, the transit center. I mean, it equates to a lot of money, so I don't, you know, and do I wanna work with you? Sure. But I don't wanna be sort of painted as anti-citizen of Hagerstown over taxing them, because they get numerous more benefits than the other municipalities. And I'm not against that, you know, we help you with everything, generally financially, it comes our way that benefits Washington County and the city of Hagerstown. So I think we do a pretty good job with helping the citizens of Hagerstown when we're asked.
And I'm not denying that, we do have a great working relationship. The city is part of the county, so just like you work with other municipalities, you do work with us. All of those projects are very good things, and if you look around the county, the majority of the large growth that is happening right now is happening in the city of Hagerstown. And yes, on those issues, we do have a great working relationship. At the end of the day, the growth of Hagerstown helps support your tax base, which is also the county. So I think you're right, for sure. It would be silly not to be working on these large projects, because if it's good for us, it's good for you guys. So I'm not trying to paint you out as being anti-City of Hagerstown taxpayer, but I think there are some very clear discrepancies in here that our citizens pay that other citizens of the county don't. And again, we're just looking for it to be fair and equitable. I think this was done, the tax differential was done 12 years ago, 12 years ago, and hasn't been revisited since then. I think we can all agree the world is a little different than it was 12 years ago, so I think it's worth reviewing. But I do appreciate and acknowledge the work that you've done in the city of Hagerstown, including the Maryland Theater and Barbara Ingram School for the Arts and the Urban Improvement Project and the Vasa Boulevard expansion, and
So
all very good things.
am I sort of hearing you say that tax differential should be variable, the other municipalities this much, Hagerstown this much, is that what you're saying?
Well, if you look at Allegheny County and other counties across the country, that is how they do a tax base. It's based on what is provided by that municipality. So ours was based off, Scott, forgive me, what county was ours
The
based
Anne
on?
Arundel model?
Anne Arundel, where they only have one municipality. So it would make sense for
So what you're
municipality.
asking, after 11 years, let's
Right.
review the formula.
Absolutely.
That's a fair request.
And I think looking at Allegheny County that's been successful in how they do it is a good model. I'm not saying we have to copycat them completely, but to look at how they break it down as far as what services are provided by what municipality would be a fair way to at least explore looking at.
Council, any comments?
Good job, Emily.
Any comments? Oh.
May I ask a question?
Oh, sure, go ahead, it's open.
Mayor Keller, you said, going back to your first bullet point, the 911 service, asking for the county and the city administrators to come together to work on a formula. What do you have in mind? It kind of sounds like maybe you disagree with the current $405,000 amount. Are you looking for a different model? And I know staff brought back to us, I haven't verified this, but I'm going to take our staff's word for it, that, for example, the city of Frederick, those 911 dispatchers for Frederick City Police officers are city employees, but they work out of the county 911 operations center there in Frederick. Is that what you're more inclined to go towards, or it just doesn't sound like the current model with $405,000 is what you hope for?
The current model may be fine. I just think it's worth looking into how it's calculated and what that looks like moving forward. But I think that that's where we get staff involved to sit down, look at the numbers, how 911 center operates, and see what the best course of action is moving forward.
Wayne, I understand, you know, I was around back in 2009 when this was discussed. And it was beneficial both the city and the county. It was beneficial to the city because we didn't have to continue to pay for upgrades in our dispatch center and do all those things, even though we still paid for the employees. But we didn't have to pay for all those upgrades. But it was also good for the county because you guys didn't have to go out and recruit and hire and train individuals to work in your 911 center that you established, because we brought them to you. And again, we paid for those employees based on that number of employees. And now we're down to one employee of the city that's left out of the 911 center. I guess my question is, I understand that the city of Hagerstown has two dedicated individuals for dispatch, but again, we fund 21% of those operations through our county taxes that we pay. What other municipality pays additional for 911? None, absolutely none.
It's because no other municipalities have dedicated dispatch for their law enforcement.
I
It's
I
two
understand
positions,
that.
but it's about 6 to 8 people.
And I also
Two
understand
positions.
that 21% of the general fund for the county that funds the 911 center equates to about $800,000. So you take that 800,000, then you take our 400,000, and the city taxpayers are paying 1.2 million. Again, it's about fair and equity. It's not about anything else.
Well, it seems, Bob, it seems like, and I keep going back to this, it seems like all the information I got from our people is it's a tremendous value at 400,000 compared to 700,000 or 800,000 what it costs us. We gotta have a minimum of 9 employees to cover HYPD, Hagerstown 24/7. And I just think, I think it's a value. I mean, I think if we were billing, we have to do it. We have to have the equipment, we gotta maintain the equipment, we have to have the backup center. There's a lot of expenses, and I just, at 400,000, it's a pretty good deal if you had to do it yourself.
And we're paying 1.2 million.
Yep, but 400,000 is what we're charging.
No, we're paying 1.2 million.
Explain.
We don't, 21% of the tax base that funds 911 comes from the city of Hagerstown.
I understand that.
That's $800,000.
I have minutes from the last meeting. I don't wanna get in an argument about it, but it clearly says that, and you were probably in this, that it wasn't a written contract, I'll give you that. But the minutes clearly state what the intent of this was on that meeting.
And it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, and I
Certainly
think
there
this
are
is why it
commissioners
needs to
that
be
say it
like
was-
in staff meetings so we can iron out and get the facts.
And that's all we're asking for today, is for the city administrator, county administrator, and whatever staff you guys see fit, and they see fit to sit down and come up with what is fair and equitable.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that this discussion needs to happen now,
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
so.
I wish Brian would have been in here because he supplied me with some information, and I left it on my desk at my church, that showed that the city uses, it's like 40-some% of those services, and the town of Boonesboro uses like 8%. So the
But
amount
yet the
of-
town of Boonesboro pays no extra.
Well, some of the other, as far as 911, you might be right. And also, as the new guy coming into this, it was my understanding that there was an agreement, but what I see here, it says, to restate the cost-sharing formula, the city will pay to the county an annual sum equal to 85% of the salary of the 11 city employees on their last day of city employment. And then further down, it says this sum will remain unchanged in future years, even though some of these employees retire or otherwise leave employment. And I keep hearing this argument of going back to staff that has left. And to me, I mean, I do see that as as an agreement, and so.
I think
Okay,
Kristen wants to add a comment.
I just want to make sure if you're going to read that, you can read the last sentence. This is deemed appropriate as the city will continue to receive the same level of service regardless of who performs those functions. I just want to make sure we read that.
Okay, well,
I'm going to read a paragraph in a certain context. I would just make sure we want to read the entirety of the paragraph.
yeah.
Well, I don't think
So-
that last sentence changes anything above it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important for staff to figure out.
Yes.
Through some deliberation to ensure that, that is what is occurring.
I listened to y'all's meeting last week, and listen, I agree with you all. I think there are some things that need to be discussed. I agree with that. And I don't understand completely why all the municipalities pay the same amount. But as I'm learning and seeing things, you know, when I'm sending an email that says that you all received $65 million over the course of the last 10 years, and stuff like that, I just want to know too. I want to know and try to work this out. To me, it seems like a tit for tat type situation, and which isn't helping anybody.
Which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I want to comment. I think you're absolutely right. That's why we need to have these staff meetings to iron out these inconsistencies and put the facts forward so we can have the data so we can make these decisions. 11 years without a review, there's justifiable to have that formula reviewed.
And that's
No
why
doubt.
I think all we're asking for is that they not be done in a singular fashion. In other words, there are 3 items here, not one. And then we make sure if we're going to do this, that we make sure that we acknowledge, the $600,000 a year disparity that our paid fire service.
Right.
So, I think that it can't be a singular item. We can't look at it and just say, what's the disparity associated with 911, what's the equitable solution? We have to recognize that these other 2 items, whether it be the disparity of which the 6 volunteer stations that just happen to be in the jurisdiction of the city don't receive equitable compensation, but the other 21 stations do, and that we make sure that we acknowledge that the city of Hagerstown spends $9 million on a paid fire system that clearly benefits the entirety of the county in a manner that no other municipality or the county itself provide in this county.
Right, well, I think we are in agreement that we need to meet, and that's part of what we're agreeing to today. Correct, everyone?
Yeah, I personally would just like to see the administrators get started
First,
and
that's what-
advance from there.
That's what was suggested within the next
Yes.
2 weeks and begin.
Yes.
Mhm.
Within the
Right.
next 2 weeks, we would
But
love to
also,
see that happen.
Also, I think, in addition to those 3 items, CRS should be included, and there's some things that we provide that should probably be included in the discussions also.
CRS is a private entity.
Yeah, first, I think you want the 2 administrators to meet and begin discussion at our staff level, and they can be brought in. Is that what you're trying to?
Who funds
Yeah,
CRS?
CRS is a private
It's
entity.
a
I'm on
it's
the
a
board.
private.
I
it's
thought
a
we did the
private
majority of the funding there.
I mean, I think we provide some
We
funding.
provide
to
some,
that.
but they are private.
They are private entities.
So what I think we've found in agreement is that we're all willing to talk and meet and bring to discussion to some agreement or finalization of those 3 issues. One was us to meet, the other 2 were fire service and the differential.
And before we leave today, can we agree to meet as a body on either, I picked these dates, July 13th or July 20th at our house, because that's 3 months from today. And I think 3 months from today, we would be able to discuss all of the progress that we've hopefully made.
What I think we're in agreement is our administrators will meet, and we'll schedule a meeting for July, one of those 2 days. Okay?
To meet as a joint city-county and
And
discuss
we'll
the
meet
progress
at your,
that
we'll
we've
meet
made.
at your home.
I'll leave the door open.
Thank you very much.
I mean,
I'd like to say I'd bring the rose petals, but I might get in trouble for that.
Since you made that comment, TikTok did not cause me to reach out to you.
Oh, Charlie.
I was
Oh,
just
yes,
saying.
you were in
Oh,
I
well,
wanna
here we
make
go.
that-
Here we
The
go.
administrator made a comment
Well-
that he couldn't believe
Well,
that
there there was a just suggestion, if you would've had pizza on that table, you might've had us all there.
See,
you
if
know?
I would've thought about that beforehand, I just thought the emoji worked.
All right,
But I'm sorry, before we go, I'd also, let's proceed with the 2x2 meetings, I think that's important. And again, I just want to reiterate, on behalf of the Hagerstown Fire Department, please give them a seat at the table for all conversations regarding fire and rescue in this county. We are the largest provider of fire, and we fill in the holes every time they're needed, and I think it is only fair that they have a seat at the table.
And it's my understanding they've been asked to join in our discussions over the new training center as well. But I'd like just to make a closing statement and give the commissioners after that. There's more that we work together on. There really, we work well. Many projects that we've done. The North Point, I think it was within an instant, the commissioners agreed to help with some of the incentives for that program, from the Maryland Theater to all. So I think there's a lot more that we work together, and I think it's just minuscule, the differences we have now. Today's meeting was a positive meeting, showing that we're gonna meet and work and iron out these formulas and find out what is equitable to all. So that's,
Mr. Klein, can
I yield.
I just want to comment that, obviously the mayor laid out 3 different issues, and Commissioner Alshire, I understand what you're talking about acknowledging that they're all there, and maybe they're all connected in some fashion. Your initial ask was to have the city administrator and the county administrator and staff sit down and talk about the dispatch issue. I mean, I'm just saying that I think if we put together a group and we try to tackle all those issues at one time, it's gonna be that's a tough ask. So I understand what you're saying, but I think, to me, the 911 dispatch is the priority now. But that's up to the elected bodies. But
And
I'm not saying we can't talk about them all, because they're probably all gonna interact a little bit. But I just think if we get together and we try to do that, that's gonna be it could be a difficult task to try to deal with all 3 of them at one time. But
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
I do agree that 911 right now, I mean, this is the issue that we need to check off, but we don't want it to happen individually. We want to see progress on all 3 areas. We've been talking about this since 2017, since the first joint meeting that we had at City Hall.
Right.
And since then, it's really been pretty stagnant.
Well, I
So we
think
just
with our
don't want it
regular
to be
schedule-
3 years from now, us sitting in the same room having the same conversation. I think
With our regular
agree
scheduled
with that.
meetings, I think we're
If
gonna
I
keep
could
track of that.
just briefly, if we could start with this document that includes 911 services and fair level funding for the volunteer stations in the city that the 4 chiefs did and signed, I think Tax Differential is kind of water under the bridge.
They signed that without the commissioners reviewing it first. I was kind of disappointed on how that whole thing orchestrated and how it
Yeah,
come
I
about.
mean,
Yeah,
We
that-
had no input in there.
yeah, there
We had
shouldn't have
no
been
discussion,
signatures.
And that shouldn't even be.
But that could be a document to review, but not commit
Well,
anybody.
that was the entire intent of doing this, was to would have the chiefs get together, have it audited, then have it presented to both bodies. It never got to that point.
Well, it
So
leaves
we
the
need to get
politics
this
out
to
of
that
it as
point.
well. I
Yeah.
think that's how it should be done. The chiefs are who handle their budget
So-
every
Hey,
day.
I agree with our administrator. Let's get started on this 911 center and let those 2 decide on how we want to advance from there. That would be
And we
my
will schedule
suggestion.
meetings
Let's get started.
July 13th or 20th. We'll confirm that.
Because we're gonna meet in July.
Yes.
yeah, and again, I'm not saying that there's not gonna be other discussions while we sit down and talk about that, because we'll have staff in the room, and I'm sure all those things will come up, but.
I'm
we
sure
try to
you
look
don't
at
want to be talking about this 3 years from now either, so.
I do not. And I'm sure nobody in this room would, like to get these resolved and move on, because we do, I'll tell you, I say short time, but it's going on 5 or 6 months now that I've been here. I guess that's still a short time, but, there's a lot of things that happen between the city of Hagerstown and Washington County that, every day, there's cooperation, and I see staff working with staff, and I see elected officials working with elected officials to work on that. And these are big issues, and we want to talk about them. But I want everyone to know that there is a cooperation that happens between the city and the county that, when you're in here seeing it, it happens every day. So I appreciate your staff, I appreciate Scott and all of you, and the things that we do every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
We also have about $50 million over the next 2 years of federal money that I think, by working together, and I've already talked to John about this, working together, we could, as I've heard many times, make a transformative difference, not only in the city, but also the county.
Very good.
So I think that's gonna be, the next thing down the road as well.
That's right, and Scott, we just talked about that the other day. And this morning, we sat next to each other at the post-legislative forum and had a discussion beforehand, so that's good.
Commissioners, council, any other comments before we close?
I would just say a few closing words. Thank you all for coming in and speaking with us. I know after the last election, I sent a handwritten note card, snail mail. I know you replied, Shelley. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like that, to welcome you each to the city council and gave you my personal contact information so we can talk at any time if you want. That offer still stands, certainly. We don't have to go through a formal channel like this necessarily, but you have my number. You can call me at any time if you'd like to discuss something. Emily, this doesn't add a seat specifically from the City of Hagerstown Fire Department on their ESAC committee, but I was the Commissioner ESAC representative during our last term, and our co-chairs, Kingsley Poole and Dick Hopkins, are former retired firefighters from the City of Hagerstown. They provide invaluable input onto that committee, and they got their skills and expertise and experience and understanding about fire services largely from working as City of Hagerstown firefighters. So I just like to give a quick shout out to them. It's not a direct representative like you want, like you mentioned. I'm open to that, but there is, in a roundabout way, some input from city firefighters.
Yes, and they're highly respected within the HFD.
All right, any other comments from anybody? Hearing none, again, thank you all very much. Appreciate the courtesy of being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay.
Big girl, see you, Randy. See you guys.
See you guys.
See y'all.
Is Mr. Mariano in the building?
We'll see. But if you have any staff comments or anything.
We're still live, everybody. Thank you, Brittany. Mr. Mariano in the room?
He will be here momentarily. He was in the restroom.
Yeah, I don't.
Topic.
Who's that?
Sarah.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care.
Just wanted to make sure. Eventually somebody's gonna say, well, you won't let me sit around.
We're still on here.
Yes.
Good job there, Commissioner Wagner.
We're on air, Terry. Yes, waiting on the next presenter. Yes. I warned them.
Morning, Bruce.
Sorry I kept you waiting, early. May I take this off, is that all right?
Sure you can.
Just so I can, thank you.
Okay, we'll begin in a moment. Terry's will be with us in a
Sign
second.
says I should keep it on, so
Yeah,
I didn't see that, I will do
it's
that.
your choice.
I'll do that.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, are you okay? We'll begin. Our next item is the legislative update. Welcome, Mr. Barriano. Please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, members of the council, county commissioners, Bruce Barriano for the record, and it's a pleasure to be here before you in Hagerstown. I would like to thank this body and the citizens of Washington County for once again giving me the opportunity to provide service and represent the county during the past legislative session. And I feel it a duty and obligation thereafter to come before you physically and in person to make myself available to answer any questions and to discuss the legislative session and to make some comments and remarks. As you know from your own deliberations and activities, during this COVID period of time, there've been a lot of challenges and difficulties in performing governmental functions, and lobbying and representing also had its challenges, not the same contact and interaction in person. But my staff and I worked it as hard as we could, and we worked throughout the session virtually, watching the hearings and testifying on various occasions and following things. Hopefully you all received, because we did it every Friday. We sent you a tracking chart of various bills and their status that either were specifically introduced as local bills for Washington County, or were bills that were of a nature that would be of interest to the county that I thought you all would want to know about. From the results in an overall capacity, there were some good things for the county, and there were a couple of disappointments as well, which need some further work. from that standpoint. I did monitor, I did not get involved or participate, I did monitor all the police and law enforcement bills and that whole issue that came before the legislature, which of course affects this county and your, your sheriff's department and your police department and your law enforcement activities. From a funding standpoint, I thought Washington County did well in terms of capital budget monies that are coming back to the county in the form of Hagerstown Revitalization Program, the Hagerstown Multi-Sports Facility, and local parks and playgrounds, as well as the YMCA in Hagerstown. Additional funding, as you know, was also acquired for the Hagerstown Aviation Museum, as well as the Smithburg High School Athletic Boosters and the Robert Johnson Community Center. Funds were received in all of those categories, which has been very good. You may recall, and I did an email out to all of you respectfully as commissioners. In one of my communications, I mistakenly indicated the support of the commissioners to the legislation establishing the Maryland Stadium Authority Hagerstown Multi-Purpose Sports and Events Facility. I immediately sent an email apologizing for that. That was a mistake on my part and unintentional, very clearly, and rectified immediately. And I acted accordingly as a result thereof. That legislation has been passed. I'm anticipating the governor will be signing it into law. Given the position of the council, at no time did I testify in favor of that legislation, either in the House or in the Senate, nor participate in any other way. So again, I, as openly as I did initially, apologize for that human error from that standpoint. The one area that just very regretfully the legislature is not appreciating the concerns of Washington County, which I'm not saying this critically or anything else. It just needs more work, and I think somehow it needs to get in maybe just reformat the legislation to get it into a committee that really will be more attentive to that. Is the legislation dealing with the Maryland Medical Assistance Program and emergency services reimbursement. I mean, that's a real issue up here. You all know it better than I. It's been one that for a couple of years we've been trying to get some assistance legislatively, and it just hasn't worked. The bills went in the House and Senate, even got the support of legislators from Harford County and Eastern Shore counties, and I understand it. I sincerely see the logic to it. It's the bills had hearings and just sat in committee. They didn't even move at all. And
may I ask a question?
Yeah,
that's been down there what 6 or 7 many years trying to get through the legislature. Is it making any progress in your opinion?
It is not, and I'm not saying that critical of anyone, and I really mean that. It's a real issue. It's a legitimate issue. It's one I do feel about. What I think needs to be done, and I'll listen, I'm with you all year. I just think there needs to be some real serious in-depth conversations with some of the stakeholders that are involved in this. To try and find a way to really have this bill formatted in a way that it goes to really a better committee. It keeps going to the House Government and Operations Committee, and it just sits there. It never gets out at all. I feel if there's a way that we could get this legislation and this whole issue formatted so that it either goes to the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee or the Senate Finance Committee, and the Economic Matters Committee on the House side. And I think there may be ways to do that, and sponsorships on the bill. I think we can raise the issue to a level of really getting it done, because it's real, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And I'm not just saying it, I mean it. It's and I'm offering to provide further time and attention during the interim on that, because it has been there quite a while, and it's the problem's not going to go away. It affects your local hospital, and it affects the lives of people, which is the most important thing. So I mean, Mr. President, members of the commissioners, I'll be glad to do that. I just, no one has really in Annapolis sufficiently articulated, why not? Monies have been available. The state, I think, has the ability to find the monies to at least start it off from monies that were received during the COVID period of time from the federal government, in terms of that, and even money that the legislature took out of the rainy day fund to help at the state level as well. So I'll be happy if you all want to pursue it in a more formal kind of a way to do that. What I will do, with your permission, and I'll report back to this body, is now with the legislature adjourned, I really want to delve into, why is it not moving? Why is it not, what's the real problem? I don't think it's just funding, and that's my concern. In one sense, funding would be somewhat easier, because then you isolate that, you know that's it, you know what numbers are needed, and you proceed accordingly. So I will come back to all of you with a report on that, if that is okay with all of you in that regard. Trying to some of the local bills did not come out of a committee. The one I know I would let me finish that thought, and then I will the alcoholic beverages special events permits for the wineries that did pass. Excuse me, the business licenses certification, the zoning certification requirement, that bill was not passed. It was given an unfavorable in the committee. There was the bill that got a lot of attention was an essential workers bill. It's passed the legislature. I think the governor either will be signing it or will be going to law. It was dramatically watered down to really apply to future situations. The county should take a look at it, because it does apply to county and state employees in future situations. And a lot of work and effort went into that bill by the legislature. They took a bill that covered everybody in the whole kitchen sink to really paring it down and tightening it up dramatically, so that it really will be tied into any future emergency or executive order by either a county authority or a governor, and that situation and circumstance will determine who's an essential worker, who's an essential employer in terms of how it should apply and where the funds would be allocated. The one good thing, just from an economic recovery standpoint, is the bill does not require employers to provide any additional monies from their own resources, but as monies are received either from the state or the federal government in any future situation, making sure that they are applied and given to the appropriate essential worker and situation as it arises. So it is a law that as I said, I believe from what I understand that it will be allowed to go into law, whether the governor signs it or not. And it is something that the county should look at and be prepared, because it applies to all the counties and local governments and municipalities, as well, from that standpoint. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I did want to say hello to the new commissioner. Congratulations to you, sir.
Any questions, just a brief, maybe summary of where Kerwin's headed?
Excuse me?
A brief summary, maybe where Kerwin is headed?
I think it's going to go forward. The initial monies that the bill required were available, and so that I think the construction phase of it is on track and moving forward. I think some of the other pieces are going to be looked at again, and I mean, funding of education is always a predominant issue and a significant one. I think with some of the experiences of COVID and some of the new patterns that possibly might develop in terms of teaching and learning experiences, that it's going to be just looked at again or discussed further in terms of the patterns and the approaches of at least instruction and education in light of what the experiences have been. Read an article in the paper just the other day. I mean, I know it's just one article. I'm not aware of some parents, in light of the experiences, may do some more homeschooling and not have kids go to school. And I mean, the whole point is, I think the experience of COVID is going to give it a further discussion and look at as you go down the road, given the expenditures that are anticipated.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Briano? Comments?
Oh, thank you.
I thank all of you very much.
Welcome. Appreciate your update, sir.
I mean it sincerely. It's a real honor. I've spent a lot of time in this county over my many years, and it's just a great county. It really is. Appreciate it. Again, with your permission, I'll wait to hear from you. I really would like to look into that reimbursement issue and really bring it to a head. I even think, and I say this in the proper way, in an election year coming up, as the session will be, that I think that would be a good opportunity and a good time to really bring it to the prominence that it really should have in terms of serving the citizens of the county.
All right, we thank you.
Okay. Good to see you all. Thank you very much. Congratulations again to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man. We're going to continue with staff reports. I went over that, so we'll bring, I guess, Dave Hayes. Yeah.
I think he's coming in.
Yeah, he's coming. He was out there waiting.
Yeah. And then we. I got to stretch my knee.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Yeah, he was sitting right there.
Okay, folks, we're gonna continue with staff reports. I skipped over that, so Dave Hayes, would you wanna, well, first of all, I should ask the county administrator or the attorney, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just very quickly. Thank you, Commissioner Klein. A few things, I wanted to update the commissioners on the FOP issue that we talked about last week. Our chief financial officer, our HR director, and Kevin Clafford are meeting tomorrow afternoon to go over all the details and work out the process. So I know we talked about last week about doing that as quickly as possible. We arranged a meeting with him, so he's coming here. And they're gonna go over the details and begin to develop the process. So I just want to let you know that that's on there, and Kevin's cooperating with us to help do that.
Very good.
And the other thing, Krista and I are working on the schedule, commissioner schedule for the last 6 months of the year. One thing that I think I heard the commissioners mention last week, I just wanted to confirm that you wanted to start looking at going out and meeting with some municipalities during that time. So we'll go ahead and if that's, I think that's what you all said, I just wanted to confirm that, but we'll be in contact with some municipalities and we'll try to arrange those to, obviously to coincide with our meeting days. So we'll work on that. Krista just sent me a draft of the schedule.
Break it up with a couple hours.
Rather than break it up, have it later in the afternoon, and then break.
Us meeting in the morning and then having a big break and then going back out, just one continuous.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a great
we can-
idea.
yeah, we can do
That
that.
makes sense too, by the way.
Yeah, no, we can do that. No, so we'll look at that, and so sometime in the next few weeks we'll bring that back to you for your. Maybe I'll just say this: if there's any commissioners that have. Or maybe you're waiting for the schedule to come out before you schedule any time you may be away. But if you know you're going to be away, if you know that now, if you want to let us know that.
Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we're off that Tuesday anyhow, so.
That's right. And I guess, once we put the schedule out, I mean, we'll send it around for all of you to review, and then we can, before we approve it. But I just want to let you know that we are looking at that, and so those are two things I just wanted to update you on. And I think that's it.
All right.
Thank
Mr. Downey, do you have any updates?
No comments this morning. Thank you.
Krista?
No, just want to remind the citizens that citizens participation, anybody wishing to participate in the meetings may submit a request to the county clerk via email at kwashco@washco-md.net, or you may call 240-313-2204 at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. We'll finish up with staff comments. Director Hayes, do you have staff comments you'd like to add? Forgive me for omitting you earlier. Thank you for your understanding. Please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Just here today to provide you an update on the fire audit process. As you know, we contracted with UHY, to complete the fire audits within a 6-month period. Communication originally went out to the fire departments on March 8th of 2021. It came to our attention around March 20th or so that some of the fire departments did not receive the communication, whether it was from a faulty email address or whether the email went into their junk mail and they didn't check it. Either way, they expressed concern about meeting the March 26th deadline. We heard that concern. Dave, myself, and the audit partner UHY, we discussed that, and we extended the deadline until April 9th. Unfortunately, UHY has still been unable to obtain a lot of information from the fire departments, and we will have to provide an additional extension, which we feel will run through the end of May. At that time, we may have to come back to you and continue this discussion further to see what other actions we may have to take to try to get some response.
So in some of the comments that we had gotten from the fire departments back when we put the original, when UHY put the original notifications out, it appeared we had some email conflicts. There were maybe some captures in junk email. So definitely a valid reason to extend the deadlines out to them. And then we also got calls from a couple of the CPA firms because it's unfortunately in the middle of tax season, even though the tax deadlines have been extended. there's a lot of work on those. But again, as Sarah had talked, we believe that if we extend the deadline for the companies to get their information out to May 30th, that would have been more than enough time to overcome any of those obstacles. And then again, at that point, if we still have non-compliant, I mean, we have some people that I believe may not have even engaged the link to sign up to put the information in to the auditing firm. So, you know, we're concerned that maybe it just doesn't carry enough emphasis on getting these things done. So we may need your help.
That's right. And many of the companies have submitted partial information. And, you know, if they're watching this, we would just encourage them too. If they have questions, please reach out to the audit firm because they're happy to talk to them and discuss it further if they need any help.
Just a curious question. How many companies didn't respond at all?
It actually looks like at this point, this is an updated list, only one company has not opened the Suralink, but 5 companies have not submitted anything. So one company didn't open the link at all. 5 companies opened the link but have not submitted.
And how many companies have you feel will have it done by the end of May, by what you see there?
2 companies are completely done. About 11 companies have submitted partial information. So if they have submitted partial information, I'm hoping that they would be able to complete that. The ones that have not made an attempt to submit any information do give me concern, but Dave's team has reached out to them and we have tried to communicate, you know, to them that we're here if they need help.
Yeah.
The audit partner's there if they need help. There shouldn't be a reason why they can't get the information submitted. So we're hoping we have full compliance.
So if something's too complicated, we're there for them.
That's right. Or if they don't understand something, they can reach out to us and say, what does this mean? Or, you know, I have this, but I don't have this. Would this work? I mean, sometimes those conversations need to happen during an audit.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Director Hayes, anything else?
I've got one more. I don't know if you want to come up there or you can stay back there, either one.
Dale, please join us.
Again, David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Dale Fishak, President, Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association.
So, Commissioners, I wanted to take a minute here to tell you an update on the Firefighter Academy and the placement of the regional firefighters that will occur at the end of this week. I'm happy to report that we're in the final week of the Firefighter Academy for the original 29. We still have about 8 firefighters and 2 paramedics to hire yet, but the first academy class is about ready to graduate. They'll graduate Friday evening at 6 p.m. and then we will place firefighters out in the regional stations throughout the county Saturday, May 15th. But a couple changes that we've been able to modify due to changes in positions from a few companies is the regional stations will be Leitersburg, Sharpsburg, and Hancock Fire. Each of those will receive a total of 3 people, 3 firefighters. One of those firefighters will be a firefighter paramedic supervisor. And then Funkstown Fire has agreed to host career staffing. So they will get 2 firefighters. And right now we don't have the 4th station solidified because Williamsport and Clear Spring did not want to move forward with hosting the firefighters. And we always said that's okay. If no's the answer, it's okay. We're not going to force firefighters in your station. But with Funkstown agreeing to take 2 firefighters, we're going to put the other 3 for the regional right now. We're going to hold them at our Station 20, which is our current Special Operations Station on Frederick Street. Go ahead and get the rollout on Saturday the 15th done, and then we can work with another station to try to figure out where that 4th station will go after the fact. But the fact that it's going to be in and around the city somewhere close, we feel we can take the paramedic level service out of that 4th regional station because it sits right in the middle of community rescue service that has a 24-hour supervisor. And then we've approached the chief of Clear Spring Fire to see if they would agree to continue to host the ALS, firefighter ALS person, which we call 1811, the unit that's currently in Clear Spring. We would propose that it stays there. Then the other thing we've done is looked at our detail staffing, and rather than just ad lib putting our extra firefighters that we have for impact relief in stations just randomly, we've selected the Potomac Valley as a permanent home for that. So they're going to get one firefighter 24/7 down in Potomac Valley, and they've agreed to cover the Kelly Relief Days, which is their days off with their corporation staffing. So 2 additional pluses. That puts us in a total of, I believe in the end, 7 or 8 stations, and there are 15 to staff. 2 of them don't use county staffing at all, so we're only gonna have to take our part-time staffing, that pot of part-time staffing in the funding, that'll be available to cover those other 6 or 7 stations, and we feel like we'll be able to answer their calls for staffing on a part-time world pretty positive. So all pretty much good news. We wanted to get that to you, and again, let you know that Saturday morning, we'll have the culmination of what is better than a year's efforts, and the Safer folks will be out there. So,
Dave, when you say 24/7 coverage,
yes, sir.
so actually how many firefighters will that entail?
So for Potomac Valley, we'll assign 3 firefighters down there total. 1 will work 124, the next comes the next day, and the next day, and that just rotates on.
I understand, but won't you need more than 3 firefighters for 24/7, 7 days a week?
Not just for 1 firefighter. So now, I talked about the Kelly Day, so every 3 weeks, there's a day that's gonna cycle in for that firefighter to be off, so they don't work 72 hours in that 7-day cycle. That is an agreement that Potomac Valley's agreed to cover that with their corporate staffing. So we don't need that 4th person down there. Hopefully that helps with explaining that.
Kinda. I was just,
And I want to point out, Potomac Valley has been asking for 5 years for help, and it's not that we've ever ignored that, it's just finding the algorithm that will let us address the system as a whole where globally a need is, and then put something into Hancock. It's just gotten to the point, but we believe we can do that safely here and manage the budget without any additional funding. The only thing we'll likely need, and we can bring that back in another meeting, is we have 3 the firefighters we hired that actually are paramedics, and in this situation I just described, we want to use those as ALS providers as well, and in doing that, we need to compensate them of the same, so we'd be asking to move them up 1 grade, which is what that paramedic firefighter grade was. It's about $4,000 a person, $12,000 total. We would not need any additional budgetary money to do that. We can cover that in our existing budgets, but that's something we'll need your concurrent to actually move those 3 people up 1 grade.
so I guess what I don't understand is there's 168 hours in a week. So if they're gonna have 3 24/7 paid firefighters, that comes out to 56 hours a week per man. So you can't do, I don't see how you, and this is just me, I don't understand how you can do 24/7 with 3 firefighters. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with 3 firefighters. I guess, and you don't have to answer that now, I just, maybe you can clear that up later.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Dave at staff comment level? Okay, thank you, and I believe you're next on the agenda item, so we'll move forward with the Volunteer Incentives Program.
Perfect.
Dave Hayes and Dale Fishak, please introduce yourself and the matter.
Dale Fishak, President, Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association.
Dave Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. So if I'm a folder, that'd be good. There we go. So Commissioners, we're here to seek approval to move forward with what was proposed in the FY21 budget for volunteer incentives. And the money was moved forward in our budget and it still exists, $453,000 for volunteer incentives. What we have done is retooled some of the programs. The association had some additional ideas through conversation with their member companies and the volunteer responders about things that might better incentivize the efforts of the volunteers in whole. And I'll let the President here speak to some. But generally, the COVID pandemic effects in Washington County continue to touch all areas of responsibility and operations efforts and the incomes that the volunteers can generate from their fundraisers. With Governor Hogan's executive orders limiting social gatherings of large numbers, many departments have needed to cancel or suspend fundraising activities since March of 2020. For the second year, you know what, I'm on the wrong one. I'm on the wrong one.
I was gonna say, you're talking about LoSAP, but, I mean, you want to,
So I have to apologize, scrap that.
You wanna do
I was
LoSAP
gonna say,
while
do-
you're into
We can
it?
finish
I was gonna
that
say, you wanna
out.
go ahead and finish that, we'll just do them in the opposite
Yep.
order, it's all right.
So this is
Okay.
this is the LoSAP points modification,
It's the
which
next
we
item on
did
the
last
agenda.
year.
okay.
The president had brought that in. I'm gonna let, the president speak some to it, and then I can follow through with the ARP itself.
So as you know, with the COVID, that there was a decline in the ability for the volunteers to get points in the LoSAP program. Not so much the active volunteers that are answering the calls, but those who are administrative and support us primarily with fundraising. Like last year, the first half of this year, there has been many fundraisers canceled that are, while they are doing fundraising, there are more of a one or two person that's putting those efforts on, as opposed to a large group that might work at bonanzas, carnivals, and those larger fundraisers. So that group of my membership had lobbied me again to ask if we could have a points modification, and I told them I would hold off to about mid-year. So even though it's only the 5th month of the year, we're about mid-year, and the projections out there that that's going to continue to be the issue. We know that there's been 2 carnivals that were already canceled. Another place that people earned a lot of points was a large bonanza that goes on, that they help and support and work for the Hagerstown Firefighters Union. So they will not be able to get enough points made up by the end of the year. So I'm asking for that modification like you did last year to give them help in acquiring points and continuing the LoSAP program.
Commissioners, any comments or thoughts, or I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any discussion, questions for Dale? Hearing none, all in favor to approve the modification, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, they deserve it.
Thank you, we
Now,
greatly appreciate it.
Back to the carnivals, you said 2 have been canceled,
Yes.
so how many are still?
Well, the 2 that I know are definitely canceled was Boonesbar canceled their carnival, and Smithburg Fire Department has canceled theirs as well. As far as I know, everybody else is still out there, but they're watching it and making decisions. Some of that is based on whether they're able to get, health department permits to approve to continue to have their carnival, and the others is even if the rides folks will be returning. So there's some logistics that they're working out, but I don't know of any others that has made an official decision at this time. But those 2 carnivals were early on in the year carnivals. The others are later in the year.
Okay, we'll move forward then with the volunteer incentive program. Gentlemen, I think you're both up for that again as well.
Try this again, see if I can't be right this time. So, again, I covered a lot of this, but basically, we were looking at how we could further incentivize volunteers and make sure that there was an opportunity for them to continue doing what they're doing, and again, understanding that the volunteers age from 16 or even 14, 15 to potentially up to 70, 80 years old. And what incentivizes one volunteer at certain ages may not be what incentivizes a volunteer at another age. So we looked at this thing in a structural world to try to vary the types of approaches. And we have several different processes here for incentives that we'd like to put forward. Going back to what I said earlier, there is $453,000 that exists in our FY21 budget, and it is also included in the proposed FY22 budget. We met with the association probably almost a month now and went through the different ideals for volunteer incentives, and we came up with several different ideals. One of them would be to incentivize company fundraising efforts. So the example you'll have in your packet here has a spreadsheet that shows incentivization at 15%. So every dollar they raise in a fundraising activity, we would give them an additional 15 cents on the dollar. Now, it's good in the form that if they do something, they get something, and if we find this is successful, we can potentially increase that number to whatever percent that we feel county budgets would support and make sense for how we want to reward the volunteers for what their efforts are. It's capped at $30,000, and there's only, I think, one company that actually would reach that cap, and these are all for 2018, 2019 numbers. It because obviously the information from FY '20 is skewed by COVID. So we're still looking back almost 2 full years, but the only company that would be capped in that particular model, based on those numbers, is Halfway, and they have a large bingo operation, but they've been hurt significantly by that. The cost for this program alone is about $130,000. There's a second program, which is a pay-per-call incentive for volunteers, responders, and this is to try to keep people on fire trucks, on ambulances, and incentivize the work for that. And through LoSAP data that was generated, again, using 2018, 2019 information, we know that providers, the heaviest responder in the county, ran 452 calls, and then that obviously goes down to numbers that are 1 and 2 even for the calendar year. This program is designed to make sure of 2 things. One is we stay clear of our LoSAP program, because you can't collect points for LoSAP and collect the credits for the calls in this particular model. You can only claim one or the other. So this program has been written that the first 40 calls that you run have to go to LoSAP, because it's a program the county's been funding for many, many years. It's heavily invested in, and we certainly don't want to have a program over here that we're funding that isn't being utilized, but we're over here using that. So you'll see that some of these numbers here, if you take the top responder, who ran 452 calls, take the 40 calls out, which is the max you can claim for LoSAP, they would have had 412 calls. At $10 a call, that person would have gotten just over $4,100 as an incentive. We recognize it exceeds the tax threshold, so it will be a 1099 requirement. The association has agreed to be the administrator of this program on behalf of the county, and they're going to do it through their, I guess, third-party vendor you use for payroll now.
Yes.
And there'll be a small administrative fee that we'll be providing to them that's in this program. And the total of this program is $194,000. And then the last one I'm going to let Dale speak to, which is a cafeteria plan. And this is there's 2 other ones out there.
Excuse me, Dave, what's budgeted, you said?
453.
So we would like to spend the remaining balance, which I believe is around $80,000, in what we would call a cafeteria plan. And as Dave alluded to earlier, we have to find ways to incentivize the 16-year-old and incentivize the 80-year-old. So with the cafeteria plan, they can somewhat select what kind of benefit they would like to take, while still using a point system to achieve the goal of reaching those benefits. Within that plan, and you have this documentation in front of you, you know, they could select to do a gas card, they could select to get a restaurant card voucher to go to a restaurant. They could do other things such as request that we would reimburse them for money that they've paid towards a student loan or even towards child care coverage. Now, none of that would be paid directly to the individual. That would have to go to either A, the school, or B, the daycare provider. They're just some examples that are in there. But that gives a wide range of how we can support each member kind of on a special basis. You know, if you're having trouble getting childcare taken care of because we want you to go to training, or we want you to come down and hang out at the fire station, and we can help reimburse some of that because you're showing up and you're earning the points, that's a benefit to us. You know, gas has gone up, so you know that could be a crunch for some people that come to the firehouse. You know, they can't afford to come down, so they could get a gas card. So I think it's all good benefits, and the reason why we emphasize the cafeteria plan again is because we have to be very diverse. This is the first. Go ahead.
So all 3 plans, what we just talked about, what's budgeted?
Yes.
Okay, so you'd implement something of all 3 plans?
Yes. Yes. So this would be the fill out for the remainder of the balance.
There's actually a 4th one. The life insurance.
That's right.
Oh,
I forgot. Yes.
Yeah.
I talked to some of the staff, you know, just digging into stuff, and I might be way off, as I actually had a conversation with Ole yesterday about the pay per call is pretty nice. Now, it seems like a big problem is drivers, right?
We do struggle with drivers, yes.
Could something be implemented there to pay drivers more? To have drivers, or, that's just me thinking out loud, I don't know.
So we looked at, if I can answer, when we looked at this plan, I guess almost 2 years ago, we did look at a step in the pay per call. And it was going to be tiered where a chief would get more and junior officers would get more, and based on your training level. But what becomes difficult is for us to administer that, because those, like the elected positions, are changing. And then it also is even difficult because it would be incumbent of the company or the individual to provide us with their training level, and we have to verify it and update it. So we felt the best way was a flat rate across the board, and Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, and in the incipient of the plan, that's probably the easiest to manage, and then we could build that all out as we go forward in years to come. So we needed to get the plan that it was easy to manage, easy for them to get their benefits in the beginning. I hear what you're saying, but I think till we get up and running.
Sort of keep it simple and.
Yeah,
Yep.
till we get it up and running,
I get it.
we could make those adjustments later.
Yep.
And the fourth one is a $10,000 life insurance policy that the association wanted to provide for those that are earning their 50 points. And originally they had come forward with an actual policy that they would get that was administered through an insurance company, and it was $120,000. So we did a real quick look back through LoSAP, and unfortunately, to see who had passed, and it's about 2.5 or 3 people a year. So we're going to propose that we self-fund that, and we'll budget $50,000 for that, and that is, again, can be covered in that 453. But historically, we have not had any large payouts above 5 deaths out of our LoSAP program. So, it makes better sense to self-fund that than to pay $120,000, and then we can save that. So I think if you look at those costs between the two, and these are roughly, for the cafeteria plan, it's $80,000. For the life insurance policy, it's $50,000. For the volunteer responder program, it's about $194,000, and then for the fundraising incentive, it's $130,000. That's about $455,000. So that comes in pretty much where we're at in the budget for this year and for next year. So we're recommending that the board approve us to go ahead and implement these programs as structured here. And then we'd also ask, I believe if I'm right about this, we talked, that this is a requirement for companies to participate in, meaning the volunteer itself can choose not to, but the company can't make the choice that we're not going to do the work to get the responder the credit or the product here. So I know we have an incentive program that some companies just said they're not going to do it, and they don't want to do the work to get the responders in there. So we'd ask that that be a requirement as well.
Commissioners, any more comments or thoughts or motion to approve this incentive program?
Motion to approve the
Is there a second?
incentive program.
Second, I do have a question or comment. I'm fully supportive of the incentive program. I like the cafeteria options. I think it covers any volunteer based on their age range or family status. You can choose which benefits would be most advantageous to you. Dale, I'm wondering, when we spoke the other day, I'm not sure if it was in my conversation with you or someone else actually, but LoSAP, that retirement benefit has stayed the same for the last, I guess, since it was implemented 20 some years ago.
That is correct.
What would it take? Do you think it would be advantageous for the county to look at that benefit and see if maybe we need to increase, maybe provide a cost of living adjustment and something to increase that benefit to make it more attractive?
So I think you're on the right track with cost of living, but I think the other thing that could help is I think we need to look at the age that you can start drawing benefits. And you were the one that I spoke with you directly about it. You can look at me as a good example. I have 37 years of credit into the system, and I've maxed out on my LoSAP to be able to acquire any more money or any more credit in the system. But I cannot draw benefits till I turn 62, and that's 10 years away. So if you want to be encouraging of the people to stay on, it might be beneficial to lower that age you know, or maybe not have an age cap, maybe it's a cap on the number of years of service. Several of the other counties in Maryland does that. One that I'm familiar with is Montgomery County. When you max out on your time, it's like a simple retirement. You give us 25 years, we're gonna start paying you and you can draw. So I think both of those things should be looked at. That will take a committee to research, and I know the actuaries will have to look at what it would do to our plan. So I'm willing to put folks from the association, if you guys wanna put people together to take a look at that, but I do think that's an avenue that we need to look at, because when LoSAP was started, we were looking at benefits and a young plan, just like any retirement plan, and we had to stretch it out long enough so we were solidified when we wanted to make the payments out at the end.
Okay, that probably sounds like a good idea, initiate a committee. Not to
Once
cut,
you start drawing, you will retire. I don't want you to retire.
No,
yeah, it makes you
I'm
about
not gonna
40
retire.
makes you
I'm
about
still around
43
for a
or
while.
something like that.
So one thing that we know from the younger generation, they can't see 62. They don't look that far ahead, and
We couldn't either.
yeah, and you're right. So, you know, these benefits that we're talking about and incentives, and I'm 100% in agreement with the president. If we can create some modification, and maybe it isn't even a full draw, it could be creative that at some age less than 62, you can draw partial where, you know, it doesn't break our fund, because obviously, you know, you're looking for the actuaries' input about what that does to it, but.
That's something we can move forward with right now. I have a first and a second on the current motion to approve the incentive program as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
President Klein, I would also like to make a motion that we do assemble a study group or a commission to look at LoSAP and how we could
Or
enhance
is
that.
the motion necessary or consensus to move forward? Because I think that's a good idea. Consensus, okay, Wayne, that we put it on record that we're gonna do it, or
That's fine.
Yeah,
everybody okay with moving forward? Yeah. With
Yeah,
that
we follow
retirement.
consensus.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Volunteers very much appreciate what you are doing and what you're going to do for
Yeah, I
them.
think it's time to review that.
Mr.
Good
President,
suggestion.
one thing I forgot to add, we would look to backdate this to January 1st. We have the data, we have the budget to do it. I'd like to at least pick it up from January 1st, 2021. Is there
Commissioners, you
consensus?
okay with that addition?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll be part of that motion. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
First of all, I was looking forward to the cheese tray. But Dale brought up something interesting in our meeting that I think we need to look at, and that's that a couple years ago, apparently it was brought up that county employees who serve as a volunteer should be allowed to leave their job and go take care of the issue that comes up. And he just briefly shared that with us, and I thought that was a neat thing, a neat idea. It's another way of promoting volunteers. It's a way of, so I don't know how.
Yeah, I think I think we had 3 people that signed up to do that during
I
the
don't
COVID.
remember.
Something
Oh,
like
you're talking about in the COVID stuff.
Yeah, I think that was something when that
Yeah,
was
2 or
involved, wasn't
3.
it?
So
But I think you're talking about on a normal.
Oh, regular
On a
basis.
regular basis.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
You talking about having employees leave their job to go to respond
Yes,
to
to respond.
an emergency event?
we were talking about, it wasn't just the county, we were talking about businesses in a whole, how they used to be able to support us with volunteers and allowing them to leave. And then that led us to talking about the county employees as well. And that's something we're gonna sign the recruitment and retention coordinator to go out and see if we can't engage some of the business to do that. And then Commissioner Burkett said, well, we need to look at that at the county level as well. So that's
very
where-
good.
to brief you where we were.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda, intergovernment cooperative purchase. I believe we're waiting on Rick Curry. Rick, if you're listening, please come forward.
I'm Brian Albert, Assistant Director of the Emergency Communications Center.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing. Subject before you is intergovernmental cooperative purchase INTG 21-0057. 911 IZzyNet Next Generation Software Upgrade for Division of Emergency Services. Recommended motion by resolution. The approval for the Division of Emergency Service to enter into a contract for the purchase and installation of the 911 IZzyNet Next Generation Software Upgrade at a cost of $1,395,818.52 from Motorola Solutions Incorporated of Chicago, Illinois, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract, RFP number 17-210, that was awarded by the Purchasing Solutions Alliance, and also be contingent upon approval of the final agreement by the County Attorney's Office. As you can see in the ARF, this board did grant permission for an application to be submitted to the Numbers Board in the amount of $1,395,254.52, which was approved for the 911 upgrade. And the Code of Public Laws does allow for this board to enter into a contract that was awarded by another jurisdiction, even though this body was not part of that contract, as long as we meet the terms and conditions of that contract. And the reason we want to utilize that contract is because of the cost factor it would be to write an RFP to solicit this service. Just for this board's information, other jurisdictions have done so, and they have spent anywhere from 6 months to a year and thousands of dollars to write a contract to even solicit this service. Also in the ARF, you can see where the funds are budgeted and also how the funds are broke down for the initial costs and the reoccurring costs, and also the concurrence of the division director and the attachment of the Vista Solution Service Agreement. Any questions?
Just a comment, this would be no additional funds to the county at all. This is 100% funded from the 911 board.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
First, second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Brian,
very
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
We receive a lot of monies from the 911 Numbers Board.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, and if not right now, that's fine, how much we receive on an annual basis? And a curiosity, what's that cumulative total?
It varies from year to year. So on the quarterly payment we get from the 911 fee, which is collected by the 911 board, is right around $1 million, $1.1 million, and that comes to us in quarterly payments from them, and that goes into the operating budget of the ECC to help pay for salaries. And that's based on cell phones that are billed to this county. So if I have a family plan and I'm billed to Washington County, the fees from that will come back to this county. That's how it's based.
Okay.
So that's about $1 million, $1.1 million. And then I'll give you an example. This year, I'm probably at about almost $4 million in grant money from them in this calendar year. We came before you with the Vesta Solutions. That was a $2.3 million upgrade to our system, and this is for $1.3 million, and then we'll have another, I think secular. I don't know if it's secular or it's a cyber monitoring system that we would have on our IT department for the ECC, and that's about $300,000. So we've obtained this year about $4 million from the 911 board.
Okay.
In addition to the 1.1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the next agenda item, the bid award. I guess Rick, and you're here again. Please introduce yourself. Gentlemen, please introduce yourself in the matter for the record. Mr. Hickson, thank you.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Danny Hickson, Deputy Director of Buildings, Grounds, and Facilities.
The subject before you is bid award PUR 1497 for one new 2021 or latest production model regular cab and chassis truck with 11-foot dump body for the Building, Grounds, and Facilities Department. Recommended motion to award the bid for the purchase of one new 2021 or latest production model regular cab chassis truck with 11-foot dump body to the responsible bidder, Hagerstown Ford of Hagerstown, Maryland, who submitted a total sum in the bid amount of $71,500, Bids were received on April 7th of this year. There were 2 bids received. The bid was advertised, we normally do them on the various medias. The new truck will be placed in a 2001 model truck. As you can see in the art, there is a county initiative guideline for when the vehicles are to be replaced. It's just a recommendation, it's not etched in stone. And I also have in here that this vehicle will be bidded on Gov Deals, but I just learned from Danny that one of the other departments has asked to take possession of that vehicle. I personally don't have a problem with that because the fact that the vehicle will not be on the road, it will be on the land, on the grounds of that facility. So that part of the ARF where it's talking about this vehicle will be auctioned on Gov Deals is not going to happen, most likely. We have concurrence from the division director, and also you have the bid tab from the 2 bidders who submitted the bids for this dump truck. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, questions, comments?
What department's taking the truck?
It'd be the Black Rock Golf Course.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next up would be Chris Boggs. I believe this is a continuation from our public hearing from a week ago. Is that correct?
It's a follow-up to that.
Follow up to that. Okay. Mr. Boggs, if you're listening, please come forward. Mr. Boggs, welcome. Please
Good morning.
introduce yourself and the matter.
Chris Boggs, Land Preservation Planner. This is the 2021 Agricultural Land Preservation District applications. As you know, last week we had the public hearing on the Ag District proposals. And since then, I have not heard any public comment through my office about them. Of course, we're done the 1-week review period, and all the numbers stay the same. Tax credits for 10 years, about $12 a year, $5,000 per year total of tax credits on these 420 acres. Let's see, any other questions, any comments?
Krista, was there any information shared with you?
No comments were received in the clerk's office.
All right, then the recommended motion will be to approve the 10-year ag land districts for the 4 properties listed.
Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I know this will officially close our public hearing on this matter, is that correct?
Well, the public hearing is closed. You are now taking the action to approve the 4 properties that were presented as the proposed districts at the public hearing.
Okay, we've done it in the right order, everything's done, okay? Thank you very much.
I'm up
Yes.
next, right?
You're next, welcome back, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Chris Boggs, Land Preservation Planner. This project is the Bowman Farms LLC Rural Legacy Project. It is a conservation easement. Bowman Farms LLC property is a 403-acre set of 3 different parcels located on Cheney's Neck Lane in Sharpsburg. And the easement will serve to permanently preserve the valuable scenic, environmental, and historic property. The parcel is mostly hay, crop, and woodland, and it's in a part of the county that was heavily trafficked during the Civil War. This is a highly desirable property for the state of Maryland. They are pushing me to get this through to them as quickly as possible. Part of it is because the house and some of the associated structures are on the National Register of Historic Places. Additionally, it borders the C&O Canal and the Potomac River. Further, we are extinguishing 20 development rights with this easement, so it is a hot ticket item for the state. let's see, just as usual, we'll receive 3% of the easement value for administrative costs, as well as 1.5% for compliance costs. And the state will reimburse us for all survey, title costs, and incidental costs associated with the project. So the recommended motion would be to approve the Bowman Farms LLC Rural Legacy Easement Project for the amount of $1,360,000, or $360,740 for 403.22 easement acres. Any questions?
What were you saying about the development,
Yeah, so the property itself, the 3 parcels that it consists of have, we will be extinguishing 20 development rights on those parcels. So that's the transaction that you use in order to preserve a parcel. If there are no development rights left, then thereby you cannot develop it any further, and it is de facto preserved, so.
How many are
Forever.
left after you?
They will have 2 rights associated with each house. So with Rural Legacy, if the house becomes decrepit or falling down, or sometimes if you just wish to relocate it, you are allowed to move it, pick it up, demo it, and build another one. Of course, it'd be very difficult with the historic house. That one's probably going to stay where it's at forever. And then there's also 1 reserved right. Even though this is a large amount of...
They're going to have, including the house that's there, they're going to have 1 right.
Including the 2 houses that are there, they will have 1 option to subdivide a lot off in the future if they choose to use it.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
Okay, commissioners, any other comments? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that ends our agenda. Need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.